In a sense, I think that Wall Street at least thought that we had kind of put to bed the Tim Cook leadership. Is he the guy to run this company? Stock is still, even with this decline, outperformed the market since he took the job. But how are you now assessing his performance in this latest phase?
This is a pretty disappointing stage. We have to admit, lots of people lost faith back in 2011. I think it was summer of 2011 when sadly Steve Jobs passed away and Tim Cook took over. I think there's a lot of disappointment set in initially. But the stock, I don't know, was 50 then perhaps, and we're at almost 3 times that now. Obviously, the stock has performed very well. But the reassurance that we got yesterday, back in November, would not have predicted any of the terrible crushing news we had yesterday. And it seems that Tim Cook should have known, and I believe he's an honest guy. Perhaps he's just drinking the same Kool-Aid as the rest of us, that he just didn't really properly foreshadow bad news on so many levels. And that's a big hit to credibility. We have market saturation. We have products that are backing up in channels. The new products aren't selling so well. They're blurring the information a little bit by not giving us unit sales anymore. There's lots on the lack of progress in India and elsewhere. There's been recall of products in Germany and China because of the Qualcomm lawsuits. And none of this so far has to do with the China economy, which we admit that there are trade issues and things there. But a lot of this was visible, and their suppliers saw it. Why didn't they?
Well, arguably, what we're really dealing with here, certainly a sudden slowdown in a big market, but just the maturity of the most profitable product of all time, the iPhone, and I guess the company's trying to come to terms with that. So do you actually fault Cook for broader strategic decisions, for example, to try to exploit that brand advantage with iPhone, to try to get higher prices, to buy back a lot of stock? I mean, what are the strategic elements of his leadership that you think may have fallen short?
Well, the stock buyback does seem ill-timed. By the way, with the tax law change, most of their overseas earnings that we were complaining about were trapped over there are still technically outside the country. So I don't know, this buyback, I'm not sure if the money came from that pool or not. I don't think so. But nonetheless, in terms of what cash he soaked up, is that this is a company where over 60% of its revenues are coming from the iPhone. The last time we had a big crash like this on Apple stock, it was around 2002, I believe, and there was no iPhone then. And Steve Jobs came out with 200 words of reassurance about the future, as opposed to whatever it was, the 1,700 words we got yesterday. But what Steve Jobs had in his pocket were the iPhone hadn't yet come out. The iPods, Apple Tunes. We had so many new things that were yet to come out that were the iPad, the things that were giant contributions to Apple's portfolio. Right now, we're looking at a huge reliance on the phone. And a belief that everybody wants iOS. Boy, in China, we now know, as everybody's looking into, we don't need iOS. It doesn't have the same appeal, the operating system for Apple, because WeChat does everything. You go in there, it makes your doctor's and dentist appointments. It pays your bills. It's more than just simple social mobility and networking. And the fact that Apple doesn't have that same appeal is a problem. And there's a backup in the new product order. Some people, not just my daughters, everybody I know sort of complains about not having the easy USB ports or not having the headphone jacks. It seems like we're being charged very high prices, and the competition. Huawei, it not only beats us in China, it beats Apple in China. Huawei is #2 worldwide after Samsung, which is #1, and that's the functionality is quite good on Huawei. I hate to admit it, although probably
Jeff,
half the country's listening.
You talk to a lot of CEOs, though, and Huawei in particular. I've heard complaints about security concerns. Do you have those concerns with Huawei?
Huawei is, as a business enterprise, is a rogue player, and we don't know how much of the government is controlling that. Some people still think they're part of the People's Liberation Army. But Huawei's a big problem. If you worked for Nortel, you don't now. Nortel complains that Huawei stole the guts of their intellectual property. Huawei has been a major non-proliferation violator in many ways, and that's part of the essence of this detention of the Chinese Huawei CFO in Canada right now. And there are now, we learned overnight, 13 Canadian executives being held hostage
Yeah.
by the Chinese, and U.S. CEOs are afraid to go to China now. Half of them tell us they're afraid to go, and we saw the travel ban.